The button. Oh shit! I think we're live, Jason.
I like this
Hey.
bit of yours. You don't know when you're actually pushing the button bit. I like it.
Yeah, I can't do it too often though. If I do it every time, it gets a little old. But
Yeah.
yeah, hey everybody! All three people in the chat right now: Denise, Amy Creel, JoJo's in there, Val's here. Oh, I think it's all women today.
Of course it is.
Well, damn. And to think, people were complaining that my show is too dude centric. So, speaking of dudes, Jason, why don't you introduce people and tell them why we're here tonight?
Well, whom would I be introducing since it's just the two of us?
Oh, I mean, introduce the topic to people.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So we're going to do a review of season 1 of The Penguin, currently on Max. It is a follow-up, and it is a direct sequel to the Matt Reeves' The Batman.
Yes.
That came out a few years ago. It is so. What we're going to do is we're going to do a very short sort of overall review of the show, spoiler free, and we'll make our recommendations about the show. And then from that point on, we're going to spoil the ever-loving crap out of this show. So if you haven't seen it, I do recommend coming back and watching this review after you've seen the show, because there are things that we are going to discuss that you need to experience fresh without any spoilers at all. If you've seen the show, great, buckle up. If you haven't, pop out when we get to that point and come back and listen to it when you've seen the whole show, because it's
for the folks listening at home and watching, we're going to let you know once the spoilers kick in, so that at that point, if you haven't seen the show yet, feel free to turn this shit off, go and watch the show if you want. And yeah, I'm not too worried about my view counts.
Never have been, never will be.
No. So I'm good. So yeah, but first, beginning part of the episode today, we're going to do the spoiler free.
Yep.
And then we are going to do the spoilers review, but we'll let you know. We will indicate as such. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So let's start with the story of how we got to watch it. Jason, we were, if you recall,
yes,
we were just coming back from the Jefferson conference.
Yep. Last month, and you had you were staying over because you had your flight was on Monday.
Yep.
And so you're like, hey, let's watch it. And my Max had lapsed. I was just gonna wait and get it later and then go back and watch it. And you're like, no, it's super cool. You need to watch it. So started watching it, and it's awesome. I'm just gonna come out and say it. This may be the best television show of the last few years. And I kind of hate to say that, because the caveat is it's an 8-episode run, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's essentially a sequel to Major Motion Pictures. So you could make the argument you don't have to see The Batman to get what happened, because they do a good job of sort of explaining the setup. But I would also suggest you miss a lot of the nuances if you haven't seen the film.
Right.
You do. I would say it's required watching, because you need to know why the area of Gotham that it opens in is in the situation that it is. It's addressed later in the show, but not in great detail. This show very much assumes that you've seen The Batman. So again, I would suggest if you haven't seen The Batman, please go and watch that film so you can understand. Because you're introduced to the Penguin, and a lot of the main characters that you interact with are debuted in that film, and the world is set up in that film. So by the time you get to the show, you need to know who these people are to make sense of a lot of it.
Yeah.
But this is easily, for me, one of the best shows I've seen in years.
Yeah, it's up there for me. So yeah, I don't know how you guys might have felt about The Batman that came out a few years ago. Robert Pattinson, done by Matt Reeves. Going back to the beginning, I would say that when I'll be totally honest. Okay, when I first saw the Matt Reeves Batman, at first, while I thought it was a good film, I didn't particularly enjoy it. Like, I thought
I
it
can
was good
understand
in
that.
terms of writing, in terms of the performances, the cinematography, everything was good, right? I
Yeah.
thought when I was watching it, I was like, this as a film is good, but I wasn't as excited about it as I was for like one of the Chris Nolan Dark Knight movies,
Yeah.
right? But it's weird because, you know, I watched it again a couple months later, when it first came out on
Yeah.
streaming. And then the Penguin comes out, and then all I'm hearing from everyone is, "Dude, you got to watch this show. This show is the shit, right? It's the bomb." And I was intrigued because Colin Farrell's performance in the Batman as the
Mhm.
Penguin,
Yeah.
the makeup, um, that accent,
Yeah.
you couldn't even tell it was Colin Farrell in there,
At all.
right?
100%. At no point would, if you had told me this was some other actor, I'd have believed it.
Hmm. And I thought, you know what? Everyone and their mother is talking about how great of a show this is.
Mhm.
I'm gonna have to go see it, right? And
Mhm.
then when I'm staying at your place and I sit you down and I force you to watch it, because I had my Max account, and you were like, I don't know, because we had like what, a day to just chill,
Yeah.
and we're
Yeah.
trying to figure out what to do or what to watch. And I think it was pretty safe to say that you were pretty much hooked in from episode one.
Yeah. That first episode, I'm like, okay, you've got my attention. And here's the thing, I'm not really a crime guy. Like
Right.
true crime, fake crime. I'm just, the whole gangster thing has never really had an appeal to me per
Hmm.
se. I like gangsters as villains in another type of show, but I like I never got into The Sopranos. I could not have cared less. I don't even think I've seen a full episode.
Have you seen Breaking
Um,
Bad?
nope, didn't care.
Hmm.
Ray loves Breaking Bad.
I love me some Breaking Bad.
Yeah, it's just not my
Yeah.
thing. I just don't care. But this got my attention, and it was done very, very well. Writing's excellent. Again, the acting in it, superb. This is
Some of the
art.
best performances, yeah.
Yeah, and again, Colin Farrell obviously is the character who an actor who carries the show. But the side characters, the secondary characters are equally as good. I mean, I think you could argue the actress who plays his mother, um, very, very good. The woman who plays the antagonist of the film of the show,
Mhm.
um, she's very good. But Colin Farrell is on a completely different level. But these other actors are bringing. Clancy Brown is in it, as
He's
well
always
as a
good.
main character. He's always good. Yeah, everyone brought their A game, but Colin Farrell, his acting in this show is just phenomenal. And the thing is, in a way, it's a very over the top character. The way he plays him with his accent, this very almost comical, um, you know, faux Italian Jersey accent.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's very over the top.
It's very Joyzy.
Yeah, it's very Joyzy.
Yeah.
He hits that oi sound a lot, and it's very like it's really over the top, but it works, and it doesn't take you out of it. It's probably because of how he carries himself and how he handles himself, and the way he expresses himself visually, he
Mhm.
carries the character, and so it's just the acting. Some of the best acting I've seen in television in a very, very long time. So yeah, I highly recommend the show. It's smart, well written, very well acted. And the cinematography, brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, it's an HBO show. What can go wrong, right? Like HBO tends to knock it out of the park with their shows. I was surprised when they announced that they're even doing this, honestly.
So was I. Well, hold
But
on. It tends to, but
mhm.
HBO's put out some pretty bad shows.
There are more good ones than bad ones, though.
No, there are.
Yeah.
Deadwood's that's a classic right there.
I can't even think of a bad HBO show now that I think about it.
A lot of people do not like House of the Dragon. Like a lot of them.
Oh,
And
really?
oh yeah.
I heard people liked it, but yeah, that one I haven't seen yet. But
Yeah. I never cared about any of the
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones stuff. It's like, look, I get it. It's nerd porn. I don't care. Um, But yeah, overall, like you're right. If I have to bet on something on an HBO show being good or bad, it's going to be good.
Hey, it's Krista.
Hey, Krista.
I think
I can't.
it's
No,
Krista.
Colin
No,
Farrell's
because Brandy always has
Irish.
her name next to it. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Hey,
she does.
Krista. Yeah.
And yeah, no, Colin Farrell. I see Amy's question. He is Irish.
Yeah, he's
very
Irish. Yeah, he's mad Irish.
The only time he's actually ever really played hardcore Irish, though, was no, he's done a couple times. Now I think about it. I was gonna say it was when he played Bullseye in Daredevil. He just went with his own accent.
Oh yeah, he just went hardcore Irish. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, he was actually again really good in it. He's never bad. But yeah, no, this show very good. I cannot recommend it enough. If you're a fan of like The Sopranos, watch the show. If you're not a fan of Sopranos, but you like just things that are smart and well written and well acted, just watch this show. It's not even like a good comic book show. It's just a good show.
Well, what I did when I reactivated my Max account, right, to watch this show, like I reactivated it just for this show, right?
Yeah.
But before I started the first episode, I actually rewatched the Batman. And one of the things I guess, because we should start with that movie, because that's where this whole show comes from, right?
Yeah.
But one thing I noticed rewatching the Robert Pattinson one is that, dude, I feel like every time I've watched it, it gets better and better.
Yes. The Batman's the thing about the Batman is it's smarter than it's a different take on Batman. It's a very real world take. Yes, that's true. But it's also it is Batman as detective and not Batman as superhero, and it's a very different take than what people are used to seeing in film.
Yeah.
In film, it's him as superhero. This was him as crime fighter and detective, which is really the best spot for Batman, particularly in the comics. Some of his best comics are just him as the detective, right? And a lot of Bat Reeves as the Batman takes a lot of inspiration from The Long Halloween and Dark Victory, and Hush as well. There's a lot of nods to some of these other series that are just beloved in the comic industry and by comic nerds, but not necessarily known to the broader, cultural milieu. And he very much leans into that. So that's what set up the film the way it was, which is why it's so good. And I'm sorry, my favorite scene that whole in the entire film is the Batmobile.
Oh, when he chases Penguin with the Batmobile.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, if you rewatch it, man, it's like certain scenes they didn't hit me as hard as when I first saw it, but then rewatching it, knowing what I know now. Hey, Paul.
Yeah.
Knowing what I know now about the direction this whole universe is going, I'm just like, holy shit, this might be the best.
Yeah.
Next to Dark Knight, this might be the best Batman movie. It might even top Dark Knight.
I will not begrudge anyone that feeling. I would tend to disagree. I think this is Pattinson's take in this whole universe is a very definitive take. It's not the definitive take. It's a definitive take. It's like, I get what they're doing with this. And again, the atmosphere of Gotham, very well done. Like I said, if someone's like, this is my favorite version of Batman, no hate. No hate. I get it. Get it completely. You tell me
it's not perfect. I did have a couple complaints, but the whole wingsuit thing was kind of dumb.
I didn't
like it.
Yeah. So from the film,
the
wingsuit thing, I'm like, it was unnecessary because we've already been exposed to the whole hang glider thing.
Yeah.
It's like you could have still done the exact same thing without it being an inflatable wingsuit. Just make it, just say it expands, but it's a wing. It's just but it looks like bat wings, like what we're used to seeing.
Yeah.
And the scene works out the same all the way across, right? Like everything that happens in that scene can still happen. Just make it look like, again, just get him gliding on on an actual thing, and it makes perfect sense. So yeah, that was like the low point. Not how that scene plays out. That was
Yep.
I loved that scene and how, because it's like, yeah, that's how that would go in real life. It's just it's a wingsuit instead of just using the cape. That was definitely a low point. But overall, the movie was great, and the show is, I don't want to say better, but I kind of like the show better than even the movie.
Well, I wouldn't compare them like that because they're kind of part of each other, right?
Yeah, they're symbiotic.
Yeah. Okay, so for those of you who haven't seen the show or seen the movie, I guess we should just introduce that in the events of the Batman, right? We're introduced to a very young, a very different Bruce Wayne, who's just after his first year as the Batman.
Yep.
And this is a Gotham City that's completely just corrupt, under the thumb of Carmine Falcone, because it's established that basically everyone, the DA, the prosecutors, the commissioner, the mayor, they all technically work for Carmine Falcone. This dude pretty much runs the entire city. And we're introduced to the Penguin, who is now, at this point, Carmine Falcone's kind of henchman.
Yeah.
And he's the owner of the 44 Below Club, where a lot of the real shady business happens, where all the Gotham elites go. This is the popular hangout spot. And at this point in the Batman, the Penguin is just a lower rung guy, right? He's like, just like a servant almost for Carmine Falcone, who does wind up getting killed at the end.
He runs the Iceberg Lounge, which is the sort of public facing club, right? It's like a nightclub for the rich and famous, and then the 44 Below Club is where all of the illegal gambling and prostitution happens, and some drugs happen for the wealthy elite that go there, right? It's like that's where you find the people in power, and so yeah, he's very much Falcone's. He's sort of like a right-hand man, but only in this regard to running this club and running this racket and doing distribution for the drugs called drops. It's a very specific, thing. And so he's handling all that for Falcone, but we find out he's not even a made man. He's just doing this one.
He's just managing. Yeah, he's just managing the club. Right.
Yep.
So yeah, it reveals this whole conspiracy where it's implied that Salvatore Moroni, right, the main, I guess, rival to Carmine's crime operations, was the one who put a hit out on Bruce Wayne's parents.
Yeah,
it's implied. And then the whole time they're dealing with the Riddler, which we will get to later. But Jason, I think now is the time we get into the spoilers.
Yes, at this point we cannot talk about the show any further without going to spoilers. So, if you want to watch the Penguin and you have not seen it yet, or you have not finished it, now would be the time to leave. If you're staying, you have watched the show, or you have no intention of watching the show ever.
Right. Okay, so here's the thing about. Let me try to see if I can pinpoint what drew you in from episode 1, okay? It starts off right after the events of the Batman, where the Riddler's pretty much flooded the entire city.
Yeah.
And you start with, the whole Penguin killing Alberto Falcone.
Yes.
Right? And then you see his relationship. It really focuses on his relationship with Victor, right? Yeah. Victor is just like this kid that he found trying to jack his tires from his car as he was dragging out Alberto Falcone's body to dispose of. He shoots at the kids. They all run off. He feels bad for him. He's got this kid dead to rights. He's got a gun pulled on him. Kid starts stuttering. Penguin kind of feels bad for him, takes him under his wing, and then throughout the rest of the show, you kind of see their growing, I guess, friendship and almost like a mentorship. Yeah. Right. And that's a very different take on the Penguin, because throughout most of the Batman series and movies and shows, Penguin is just seen as this evil, conniving, schemy just criminal, right? You
Yeah.
don't see the more human side to him. And that's what Penguin's season 1 starts with, right? You see a more human side. You see, like, he talks about his childhood memories. You see what kind of music he likes. You see him complaining about like too many pickles in his sandwich, or not enough pickles, actually.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's how it starts, right? So in the beginning, you're almost like, oh man, I kind of like this guy. He's a likable guy. There's a human side to him. Maybe there's a little goodness to him. But then by the end of the series, you're like, holy shit, this dude's evil as fuck.
He's an irredeemable monster, and Batman needs to show up and put him in jail immediately.
By the end of it, you're like, Batman, please kick the shit out of this guy. This guy's so evil.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is traditionally, by the time Batman is interacting with most of his villains, they're established in what they are, right? Like the Joker or the Riddler, they're sort of these terrorists is honestly the best way to think of them, right? They're not really crime bosses, but the Penguin's always a crime boss, and he's always established as that. He was just this secondary character in the film, and this is how he becomes the Penguin that we know of him in the comics, where he's the crime boss, and he's someone who goes to Blackgate. And that's an important thing we need to talk about later. In the Batman comics, there's two places villains go. They either go to Arkham because they're crazy, or they go to Blackgate, which is like the prison for hardened criminals. Yeah. The Penguin pretty much universally has always gone to Blackgate. He's never been seen as crazy. He's always been seen as a criminal. And yeah, to Donnie's point, the show, because the thing that's really smart about it is because we sort of have Victor's point of view in a way. Hold
on, who's Victor again?
So Victor's the kid that he so that's Victor. He's this kid we're introduced to, even though we're being told we're being told the story through an objective third-party viewpoint that focuses on the Penguin. His interactions with Victor is how we explore the Penguin's backstory and the Penguin's views on everything that's happened, from the Batman and even before. So in a way, the Victor becomes our view, our lens through which we view these events and these characters. And the Penguin starts off as very, very sympathetic,
right?
In a way. And like you said, by the end of the show, what we have found out is he's not this, guy who just had a series of tough breaks and was just trying to make it out, make it in this very corrupt world. Even though aspects of that story are true to a point, the dude's a monster, straight up monster, and Batman needs to put him into prison hard, very hard. Can we just go ahead and say why the Penguin should go right now? Because
go for it. Spoilers. Go for it.
All right. For the first five or six episodes, what we know is his mother, who he's hiding. He's told everyone that his mother's dead. He's hiding his mother outside of Gotham.
Oh, and also, wait, hold on. Don't mean to interrupt, but another reason why we sympathize with the Penguin, because throughout the first few episodes, you see him like really concerned about his mother.
Yes.
Looking after his mom, right? That she's a big focal point of the story.
Whom he genuinely seems to care for. And she is she is literally his top priority the entire show. The entire show, she's his top priority above everything. And one of the really smart things they did is in the movie, there's a scene where the Penguin knowing Spanish actually is a big plot point in the Batman.
Yeah.
They explain why he knows Spanish in this show. Yeah. In a very organic way. Again, back to the writing of the show. It's show, don't tell. And if they tell you something, they do it in a way where it's you don't get everything. But like I said, he's very sympathetic. We see this mother who seems to be driving him to be the criminal. She seems to be driving him, and we're like, oh, he was sort of manipulated into becoming this gangster by this overbearing mother who he clearly adores, and she's driving him to become this mobster character, right? And own the city and get what he deserves and give her everything she deserves. And that's sort of what we're introduced to. And we know his father had died, but there's this constant talking about his brothers, Jack and Benny, which is anyone who has sort of an affinity for like big band music and sort of there's this recurring theme of very, very old films and old music with her. It's clear that this is a reference to Jack Benny, the orchestra band leader from Swing and Big Band. You muted yourself.
Oh, I didn't realize that was the where the name came from.
Yeah, it's very if you're a fan of big band or swing, you immediately like it's Jack Benny that they're talking about, because that's the time frame. So they've died. His two brothers have died. That's all we know about him. And Vic asks him, what happened to your brothers? And Colin Farrell looks at him and says, the city took them. And so it's this very sort of vague, tragic upbringing kind of story. And he tells us about this gangster. In fact, we're introduced to this concept of the gangster, of this gangster that was running around his neighborhood when he was growing up in the first episode. There's a lot of these themes that we find out very, very, very early on. Come to find out, Penguin as a kid kills his two brothers because it was very clear that his mother loved them more than him. And he figured out and essentially arranged their deaths. She knows about this. She figures it out pretty fast. She was actually working. I'm sorry. Donny.
Okay, no, let's just elaborate a little bit. I think you're going a little quick. So you could tell when they flash back to Penguin as a kid, right? Yeah. Like he's very attached to his mom, like almost a little too much to the point where it's a little bit weird.
Yeah.
And remember, guys, Penguin is handicapped, right? He's got a club foot.
Yeah.
So he waddles around like a penguin, which is why all the other gangsters and all the people like who work in the same group as he does, they all laugh behind his back.
Yeah.
You know, they make fun of him. Yeah, because of he's got a club foot, right?
Yeah.
And he's had a club foot since a kid. So his two brothers, Jack and Benny, you know, they're more, I guess,
normal kids.
Normal is the right word, right?
Yeah.
He's handicapped, so he's like extra attached to his mom, where the other two kids, you know, they're more well adjusted. And you could tell in the flashback scene that there's like when she doesn't pay attention to Oz, Penguin, and she pays attention to his brother, you can see him like looking like cross, like, oh, there's something fucked up behind his kids, like in this kid's head, right? So do you want to explain how the kids died or how the brothers died?
Yes. So earlier in the series, we find this base of operations that the Penguin turns to start this new crime lab, which is in these abandoned tunnels. Again, one of the constant themes of both the Batman and the show is government corruption.
Yeah.
Please understand, one of the main themes of all of this is the difference between the Penguin and city council members 9 times out of 10 is just legitimacy. Like that's it. Yeah. They're like, no, these people are the real criminals. We're just more on. In many ways, the criminals are just more honest about what they are. That's very much what this is. What this constant theme of this series is. So there are these abandoned subway tunnels that his brothers and he would play in, and they're playing in them, and essentially they put him in a situation where he can't go down this flight of stairs in this drainage runoff because it's raining outside, and he knows this.
Yeah, they're playing hide and seek in like these abandoned subway tunnels, basically, is what it is, right?
Yeah. And so he ends up locking them in this sewer runoff, and they drown. And it's very clear he knows what he's doing. Like this is episode 7. it's very clear. He knows, as a child, he knows what he's doing, and even gives a little smirk when he turns around, because he's later with his mother, and he's like, "Oh, they went to go see Beetlejuice," and he's with her, snuggled up with her while they're watching a movie, and he turns around and he sees
This is
the
the
rain.
scene. Yeah.
This is the scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he starts to smile. He knows he's murdered them.
Meanwhile, his brothers are locked in a sewer runoff, right? Because he was pissed that they were kind of like taunting him at the fact that they forced him to climb a ladder to reach them in this game of hide and seek. So he just locks them. He's like, "Oh yeah, that'll teach you guys," and then he just locks it, and then he just like walks home. And then mom's like, "Where'd they go?" And he just makes up some like some bullshit excuse.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, he's like looking out the window, seeing the rain, and like that he knows that they're pretty much dead, drowning.
And the thing is, at first you're given the out that maybe he doesn't understand that what he did. Like maybe he's like he just thought they could get out eventually, and he didn't and he thought he was just messing with them. They make it explicitly clear he knew, and he didn't tell anyone. He kept the lie up because he was trying to kill them. And there's this pattern that we see in the very first opening scenes, right? When he kills Alberto Falcone. He knows killing Falcone's a bad idea, but he's making fun of him for having this desire to become this gangster, this beloved gangster, right? So he just flat kills Falcone, and he's like, and that's when it cuts to the opening scene or the opening credits. The pattern is very clear. He acts impulsively, and then he has to think 12 steps ahead to figure out how to get his butt out of it and manipulate everyone into giving him what he wants.
Right.
And that pattern ultimately starts with his brothers, where he impulsively locks them in the sewer runoff, and he realizes, okay, this is going to kill them, but I'm going to be okay with this, and I'm going to get what I want, which is my mother's undivided love and attention.
Right.
And then later on, again, these revelations come very, very fast. We are then introduced to the idea that she knew the entire time what he was, and that he killed him. And there's this event that is alluded to all throughout the series, that one day, while she's recovering from the tragic loss of his brothers, she just gets up, puts on dress, and tells him, "We're going to the club. You got to get dressed." And they go to this club, and he promises her everything. That's what he's doing. He's working to get her everything she deserves. Turns out, because we now see it from her side, she had arranged, because she was working for this gangster that he loved, that he idolized, and he looked up to. That she had worked out with him, that she worked with the guy, and finally she's like, "Look,
Rex Calabrese, Penguin's like childhood hero. Yeah.
So Rex is actually going to kill the Penguin as a kid. Yeah. That's the deal. And the kid, and again, the Penguin as a kid, talks her into becoming his enabler. And that's the craziest thing about this relationship, is we think she's this manipulative, overbearing mother who forces him into this life and is driving him to become this criminal. No, he was the monster the entire time. He manipulated her into becoming his enabler so that he could become the Penguin. And there's this really intense scene where everyone knows the truth of the story of Jack and Benny. It's clear. The mother knows he did it. Sophia Falcone.
Yeah.
She knows this whole story. It's laid bare, and she's going to cut off. Yeah. So, and that's Falcone.
Sophia Falcone. Yeah. Yes. The adversary, the antagonist of the story, until she isn't, right?
Well, she never stops being the adversary, but she ceases to be the biggest villain.
Yeah.
But so she's literally going to cut off his mother's finger. And she's like, all you got to do. Yes, nobody's a good guy in this.
Well, actually, Victor's a good guy. He's like a pure-hearted kid, right, who had a
kind of
loving
gets
family,
dragged
whose
into it.
family was wiped out because of the in the events of the Batman, the Riddler like knocked out the seawall, and like the
Yeah,
whole city got flooded, and as
yeah,
a
his whole
result,
family
Victor's
was murdered.
family
Yeah.
they drowned in the events of that the Riddler attacks, and as a result, the Penguin finds him like on the streets and takes him in.
Hmm. Yeah,
He's the
but
only like real good person, but I
he
wouldn't call him.
sorry. It's not that he starts off as a good person who's maybe going towards the dark side, but the problem is he does very quickly get corrupted by the Penguin into becoming this criminal, because he's in on all of it. He's a drug dealer, he's a killer, and we're seeing his corruption as he goes. But yeah, so this mother whom he's supposed to love more than anything else, the Penguin, is getting ready to have her finger cut off, and all he has to do is say, "Yes, I killed them."
Yeah.
Right? And finally, it's like Sophia realizes
She's like,
yeah,
"You're actually going to let me cut your own mother's finger off? What the
yeah,
hell?"
because of this story. And that's the realization that, yes, he cares about his mother, but not the way we do. This is not her role in his head, is not this beloved figure that he wants to make it's he wants her approval. And he needs this story about himself to be true, or he wants people to have this view of him. It's not her that he actually cares about. And that's the creepiest realization of this entire thing, is this man does the reason he can do everything he does is because ultimately his goal is what matters to him. Nothing else matters. Nothing else is of importance. Just this thing to be able to say, I did this. Here's my story. I am now beloved by all these people because of the things that I've done. It showcases this very bizarre psychology, and really almost Oedipal psychology, because by the end of it, she's had a stroke. She's locked in her body, but he has her in this he has her in a penthouse, and she's hooked up and she's overlooking the sea. So she's gotten everything that she's ever wanted, but she's locked in this room in her own body with this child, or this human that she hates, because she didn't have the strength to kill him because of what he was. And he leaves her room and goes down, and there's this prostitute character that we've known the entire time. And we now know that while she had a relationship with him, she hates him because the realization of again, there's too much to go into, but she now hates him too. But she's now doing what he wants, and she's dressing as his mother on that evening. She's wearing the same makeup. She has her hair done up the same way. And he's like, tell me you love me. Tell me I did good. Tell me I got you everything you ever wanted. And they're dancing. It is so it is so mind-blowingly insane what you see. And when you have this realization of what the Penguin is and how he got and why he did it, you're like, this is nuts. And did you notice the penthouse he's in is the penthouse that is the first thing we see in the Batman? The politician who's murdered by the
mayor?
Riddler. Yeah, no, it wasn't the mayor. Was it the mayor?
It was the mayor. Yeah, no, it was the dude running for. Yeah, he was running for re-election.
Yeah, he was running for. You're right.
Yeah.
So the mayor who's killed at the beginning of the Batman, that's his penthouse. That's the room he was killed in.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it literally comes full circle to the beginning of the Batman, where the guy running for re-election who's murdered by the Riddler at the beginning, that's his penthouse. That's his home. And I didn't realize it at first. It was when they pan out, the ledge had been broken. That had happened in the film.
Oh, so, okay.
Yeah, he's taking up, and of course, that's when we're reminded Batman's coming, because you get the bat signal in the sky for the first time is at the end of this. But this man, and the thing that cements that scene is so unbelievably evil is the Penguin has gotten everything that he wanted in the scene before. And he's sitting there with Victor, right?
Right.
And talking about Victor, he's like, I love you. You're my family. And Victor's like, you're my family. And the Penguin strangles him by saying, you are my family. You are the thing I care about you more than anyone else outside of my mother. But the thing is, family makes you weak. And you're a good man, Vic. You did good, kid. And he's killing him while he's telling him,
strangling him to death. Yeah.
You did good.
He's like, I'm proud of you, kid. And
yeah,
meanwhile, Vic's like pleading for his life. And then he just kills him like, oh, just all willy-nilly. And then he's just like, oh, well.
Yeah.
You remember, and he empties out his wallet.
He takes the money out of his wallet. He takes his ID card, which was, again, at the beginning of the series, he starts by taking his ID card. And he throws the ID card into the water so they can't identify his body. So he's just some random guy who's been mugged and killed. And that's how the cops are going to treat it. And he walks off. And then he becomes the Penguin. That's him killing Vic, then allows him to become the Penguin. And we get that remarkably creepy scene. This show took this character that's very sympathetic at the beginning, and he's pulling at your heartstrings in many ways and your sympathies in every way possible. And being this very almost likable, affable guy. Right. But every chance they get, they're telling you, this is not a good human being. He is manipulating everyone he knows, even though these other people, like Sophia Falcone, is a full-on criminal. Even before the events of her story happen, she's still a criminal. She's going to become the head of the Falcone family. Now, in many ways, she's legitimately the sympathetic character that the Penguin pretends to be, but she's still a criminal. She has no problem with the prostitutes or the drugs or the murders or any of it. Not one problem. But the connections that these criminals have with their own family is relatable, understandable, very human. The Penguin is his own monster.
Right.
His own monster entirely.
Well, comparing someone like the Penguin with like Game of Thrones, let's say like Ramsay Bolton or like a Joffrey, right? Ramsay Bolton and Joffrey in Game of Thrones, they're just completely evil. Like literally every scene that they're in, they're doing something fucked up. Like through and through. They're just evil to the bone. No redeeming qualities. There's no moment of where you see like a good aside to them. No, those two characters, Joffrey and Ramsay, fucking evil through and through to the bone, right? It's different with Penguin because you see like in the beginning, you see like
a very human,
very likable aspects to him, right?
Yeah.
Of his personality, like he's very charismatic.
Yes.
You could say that his one superpower is his ability to talk his way out of situations.
Yes.
And I would say that unlike Joffrey or Ramsay, you just watch them being evil like all the time. With the Penguin, he suckers you in, and then by the end of it, you feel like you as the audience are a victim of his evil.
Yeah.
Because he's so good at deceiving himself deceiving others that he deceives himself even, right?
Yes.
That's how you know who the best liar is, the one who lies to themselves.
Yeah. He's creating this universe for him to live in this mythos for him to live up to, that he's actively creating around the reality of of the horrors that he performs. And we kind of excuse a lot of his evil because he's performing it against legitimate criminals.
Right.
Again, nobody that he's interacting with is innocent. Most of these people are mass murderers and drug dealers, extortioners. They're violent, and they are people who don't mind watching people's lives be destroyed to a point. So you kind of are okay with it because you're like, okay, yeah, I mean, some criminal gets it. I don't care. These are terrible people to begin with. But if that switch in that last episode, you realize, oh no, this isn't some guy who's had that whole backstory is crap. He created that backstory because he's a monster. He is a monster among heartless criminals. He's something that is legitimately evil in a way that none of these other people are. Again, none of these people are good people,
Right.
but he's a monster.
Right. Well, I mean, he's a Batman villain, right?
Yep.
Now, with regards to Batman villains, if we harken back to like the 60s Adam West series, right? You would have Riddler, Joker, and Penguin. And personality wise, they were all kind of the same. They're all pretty much cookie cutter. They just had different gimmicks, but they were pretty much the same guy. Whereas in later iterations, and especially now with the Batman, you have the Joker, the Riddler, and Penguin as like they're all evil as fuck, but they're all very evil in very different ways.
Yeah.
So that part, I wanna talk about that for a bit, because here in the Penguin, by the end of it, you feel like this dude is absolutely freaking evil, right?
Yes.
And we both know that, you know, the thing that makes Penguin unique amongst Batman villains is that he doesn't go to Arkham Asylum, unlike the other enemies, because all of the other Batman villains are straight up like insane, right? Psychopaths, as you call it.
Yeah.
Penguin gets locked up and goes to regular Blackgate prison, right? He gets treated like a common criminal, right? He doesn't go to the asylum. So, break down the difference between Penguin's evil and the Riddler's.
And again, in a way, the Riddler is the sympathetic villain that the Penguin pretends to be. As you find out in the Batman, he was an orphan. Like he lived through the heartlessness that is this corrupt city of Gotham, right? In many ways, he is a victim of this system of corruption and of wealth and the politicians, but he decides to take his pain and suffering and just say, I'm going to kill everybody. Like his entire thing is, I'm going to terrorize everyone to destroy the system, and I'm going to take all these people with it. Right. He takes this victim status and says, I'm going to transform it into becoming the victor, but not to help people, to destroy. So in many ways, he's actually the anti-Batman.
Right, because if you recall in the interrogation scene, he says the reason why he was doing everything was because he was inspired by the Batman.
Yes.
Like he's basically, you know, like, okay, with comic book movies and like villains, right? A lot of these movie villains, they tend to fall into one of two categories, right? They're either like the complete opposite of the hero. It's like, I would say Joker would be a good example of that. Like he's the complete opposite of Batman in every way. Or they're like a dark version of the superhero.
Yeah.
For example, like Black Panther. What was the villain's name of Black Panther?
Killmonger.
Yeah, Killmonger, right? Killmonger is essentially just Black Panther but evil, right?
Yeah.
There was
Goldeneye, right? The James Bond, the villain in that was his friend. It was 006.
Yeah.
It's just evil James Bond.
Or Superman and General Zod.
Yeah.
Right? Like General Zod is like an evil version of Superman, whereas like Lex Luthor is like the complete opposite of Superman in every way, right? So in this regard, I would say Riddler, he is like a dark version of Bruce Wayne because he too was an orphan. He too is trying to lash out at all the villains. Like, okay, I would say the main difference between Penguin and the Riddler in this universe is that Riddler actually, he thinks he's doing good.
Yeah.
Right? He thinks in his mind he is the hero and he is an instrument of vengeance to strike down all the bad guys. And he's inspired by this because he sees Batman going around beating the shit out of bad guys. And he's like, and remember the interrogation scene where he's just like, Bruce Wayne, right? And then that first Batman's like, oh shit, he knows who I am. And he's all like, he's like looking all nervous. You never see Batman look all nervous.
Yeah.
And then like you realize, oh, he's chanting Bruce Wayne to him because he's trying to he thinks that he and Batman are on the same team, and he's trying to get Batman to take Bruce Wayne down.
Yeah.
And so once Batman realizes this, he's like, "Oh shit, this dude's even crazier than I thought."
Yeah. Yeah, because he took, and there's this long-standing commentary in the Batman comics, which is one of the things I did. I wasn't a fan of Gotham, the Fox television show, but there was one concept I liked because they in that show they flipped this commentary, because traditionally the weird supervillains don't show up until after Batman has shown up, right? And so that's when these characters kind of come out of the woodwork. In Gotham, he is a response to these characters. But in the Batman, the Riddler is a response to Batman, because he's like, oh, because Batman's been active for 1 year. He's already fought the Joker. And he's like, this guy is waging this one-man war on crime. He sees himself as Batman's partner.
Right.
Helping Batman. Because he's like, I agree with you. Let's dish out vengeance on everyone. Where Batman's going after and trying to do he's going after very specifically criminals in his way. The Riddler's like, no, let's just take everyone out because they're all guilty. And so he is this dark version of Batman, and it serves as a response to this dark reflection for Bruce Wayne to realize, oh, I'm doing this wrong. I need to be something else.
Right.
So that by the time we get to the Batman 2, this is going to be a Batman we're more familiar with, who isn't, I am vengeance, I am the night. It's, I'm here for justice. I'm here to actually help people, not just beat people up because I'm mad at my parents' killer. It's, I need to genuinely help people and genuinely fix this city.
Yeah.
It's how he becomes that. He goes from A to B is the Riddler, because the Riddler is his dark reflection. So the next step is going to be the Penguin, who is legitimately evil and a legitimately corrupting force in Gotham that needs to be destroyed, because this man's a monster.
Yeah, but Penguin's evil is a different sort of evil, right? Because his evil is it's driven by his lust for power and his desire to feed his ego.
Yeah.
Right. He's just driven by power and ego, right? That's Penguin. Whereas the Riddler, he's more of the way I think about it is, if I had to compare them to real people, I would say Penguin is more like a Joseph Stalin, whereas Riddler's more like a Ted Kaczynski or like a Timothy McVeigh with 100%. A bit of like Zodiac Killer.
Well, he was based off the Zodiac Killer. This interpretation of was based, but yeah, so he's Zodiac Killer mixed with Ted Kaczynski. I think it's a great analogy. And yes, the Penguin is Stalin 100%.
Right.
100%.
Now, let me ask you then. How would you compare Penguin with the Joker?
So here's the Riddler. We don't know this Joker yet. Like there was a scene. There was he only had a couple of scenes in the film that were even filmed. We don't know anything about him or where he comes from, or what his story is, because all we know is he's been taken out.
We just have that deleted scene and that one scene at the end.
At the end, where he's talking to the Riddler behind glass, and you're like, oh crap, that's the Joker. So we know that he was out. We know that he had originally because in the film, the gang that he beats up in the opening scene, those were the Jokers. They say they're the Jokers. They wear the makeup. So the Joker was out. He did something. He inspired this gang, but he's already been defeated by Batman and locked in Arkham. So we don't know anything about him. Here's the thing. The Joker in the comics is beyond. He's basically whatever you want him to be, right? In some instances, it's very clear he's aware he's a comic book character. Like, this is how meta the Joker can be rationalized in the comics. In some versions, he understands he's a comic book character and actually knows he's talking to the audience. Other times, my favorite story about the Joker is actually in these they did these sort of anthologies called Batman Black and White. All the stories were in black and white, and this story was done by the art was done by Alex Ross, and the story is done by Paul Dini, who created the Batman animated series in the 90s. And essentially the story is this psychiatrist at Arkham is reading this long abandoned paper about the Joker. And it's going through his history, and the conclusion at the end of it is the Joker is actually sane. He's not insane at all. He's sane. He's plotted all this out. He's created this this veneer of insanity because he loves the danger. He loves the thrill. He loves to create these complicated, theme, gimmicks because he wants to have the thrill and the intricacy of the planning. He wanted to do the crime hands-on, but he's 100% sane. In fact, his appearance of insanity is a very clever disguise so that we don't recognize him for what he is. And then at the very end of the comic, we find out who wrote the paper. It's Harley Quinn. To which the older psychiatrist looks at the guy who's reading the paper and says, "Congratulations. This paper can do you no good whatsoever because the person who wrote it was driven insane by the Joker." And so the thing about the Joker is he can be anything you want him to be. At one point they canonically admitted there were 3 different Jokers who were completely different people,
right?
All acting at the same time, and yet we're down to one. So we don't know what he is in this universe. Is it sort of the Jack Napier thing that we got from Batman 1989?
Well, I think I could speak on based off what little we can gather off those couple scenes, and but you kind of get a hint. He's not like Penguin where he's driven just by power or ego.
No,
he's not like the Riddler where he thinks he's on a mission of good. He's just got he's so just divorced from reality that he winds up becoming a serial killer. I think Joker represents more of a supernatural evil. Like to me, it's more like Reagan in The Exorcist being completely possessed. Like he's more just a straight up monster. Whereas he is evil just because it's like fun.
Right.
Whereas the Penguin is evil because he just wants power and he wants to feed his ego so bad.
Yeah. Well, the Joker is usually the anti-Batman.
Yeah.
That's how he's viewed. So that's why you could, if again, in The Dark Knight probably does this the best. Batman is this force of order and stability and moving forward, whereas the Joker is entropy. It's chaos. It's every man for himself. It's selfishness, right?
Right.
We can kind of assume in a way that this is, again, kind of what, that's the same role, but we just don't know what he is yet because we don't have enough information.
I think
I like that idea. I think I
kind of tell where they're going with him, though. What kind of, right? Like, I know they're going to make him very different from Riddler and Penguin.
Yeah. I would agree with that. They'd have to.
One of my favorite little scenes in the Penguin series was the first episode where they're driving through the old neighborhood and they're looking at all the destruction that Riddler caused with the breaking the seawall. And then you see Penguin just looking all disdainfully out the window and just being like, look at what that madman did.
Yeah.
You can tell in Penguin's eyes, he thinks the Riddler's an evil fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, because in a way he actually cares more about Gotham than anything else.
Yeah.
He legitimately cares about that.
He legitimately loves the city.
In a way, so in that aspect, he becomes an anti-Batman as well because Batman hates Gotham because of what it took from him. Whereas the Penguin's willing to sacrifice everything any legitimate thing he should care about, he's willing to sacrifice for Gotham. And not a perfect Gotham or perfected Gotham or a healing Gotham.
Just that Gotham.
But for a corrupted Gotham.
Yeah.
He loves the corrupted nature of Gotham because it allows him power.
Yeah. He wants to be the king.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, I mean, whereas the Riddler wants to drown, but he wants to destroy Gotham.
Yeah.
Penguin wants to rule Gotham. And I think the Joker is he's just the Joker.
Yeah. Yeah, he is just entropy and chaos.
Yeah. He's evil for evil's sake.
Yeah.
That's why I would say
I like that perspective on him, where he's essentially a demonic figure.
Right.
He is the devil in hell.
Yeah, that's why I say Reagan from The Exorcist.
Yeah.
Where it's like there's no negotiating with that. There's no parlay. You just gotta as Batman, you just gotta punch that thing in the face as hard as you can.
Yeah. I agree 100%.
Well, I mean, both the Penguin and Riddler. I mean, Riddler was real fascinating too, just because he thought that he was the good guy the whole time.
Yeah. Well, they both do. That's the thing, is they both think they're the good guy, just in very different ways.
I don't think Penguin sees himself as the good guy. I think the Penguin just doesn't care because he just wants the power. He just wants to be king.
He wants to be king, but he's okay. Good guy is the wrong word. He's the hero of his story. They're both the heroes of their story.
Yeah, you could say he sees himself as the hero of his story.
Yeah.
But I don't think he ever thinks he's never saying he never claims that he's such a good person. Like when he just so callously kills Victor like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he doesn't see himself as, I think that's a good way of looking. He doesn't see himself as a good person at all. But he sees himself as the hero of the story. He absolutely does.
Right.
And he does do things to help other people. But again, it's in the furtherance of his own ambition and ego and story.
Right.
Like he gets the power brought back to the part of town that was destroyed.
Because he helps people because he wants to be praised by them.
Exactly. It's to feed his ego.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a manipulator.
And you know what? One of the best scenes in the Batman, honestly, was the one scene that shows that the Riddler is actually the total opposite of the Penguin. Is like, okay, his scenes when he's like talking into the camera, like on that grungy ass, phone camera, his voice is all crazy, right? But then there's that one scene where it's like they find the hidden video, and it's him addressing his all the people in his chat rooms. And he's like normal speaking voice. He's like, "Oh, thanks, guys. I just wanted to thank you all. All your words of advice and encouragement really meant a lot to me." And
yes,
he had like a really gentle voice. You could tell he was like really sincere.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is that's what really makes the Joker, or not the Joker, the Penguin stand out in this universe so far is in many ways, the Riddler's a very human character. Sophia, the antagonist, very human character.
Sophia started off as a good person, she's before she got thrown into Arkham and fucked over by her dad. She was working on all these charities. She was still part of a Falcone family, but you could tell she was a decent person.
Well, good again. This is one of those things where good is probably needs to be in quotation marks because she was going to become head of that was the whole thing. She was going to take over the crime family, running prostitution, and she was happy to do all this. She just wanted her hands clean. And here it is. She's actually the anti-Penguin. She's the anti-Penguin. She starts off having all of the power that he doesn't, right? And she's happy to perform the crime, but she doesn't want her hands dirtied. But she very much wants, before she goes to Arkham, she wants the love and praise, and she wants the respectability just as much as he does. So she has at the beginning of her story what he has at the end of his. And they flip.
Yeah, and because at the end she wants to give it up. She's like tired of it.
And then she goes back to Arkham. She's lost everything. She's where he is at the beginning of she ends up where he begins, and he ends where she began. So she's actually the anti-Penguin in the story, which is why this is such a great sort of back and forth. And she actually elucidates what's wrong, like what's going on in his head in a lot of ways. She actually exposes him for what he is, which is what a good foil does. A good foil in any story is telling you who the main character is. right? In their back and forth. So yeah, she's the anti-Penguin, but she's again. We can't call it's like, well, she's a victim of this. Like, no. She was going to take over the Falcone crime family. She had no ideals of revising anything or correcting anything or going legitimate or shutting anything down. She was going to take over the crime. That means the prostitutes, the drugs, the extortion, the murders, all of it. She just didn't want to get her hands dirty. Whereas the Penguin was like, I'll do the crime. I'll do it myself. I'll get my hands dirty. I'll be on the street level. So when they're working together, that's when they're essentially the same. That's the midway point for both of their stories. And then she starts heading his direction. He starts heading where she began. And so, yeah, if she's the foil character for him, and they're just working from opposite ends, and they end up, So again, not a good person, but she's a more human character in a lot of ways than he is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I still think Penguin is like,
he's a monster.
She's evil in her own right.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, Penguin is he's evil.
He's a monster.
By the end of it, you're just like, this dude is so goddamn evil.
She is, and again, she is a victim. Like, I'll say this, she is absolutely a victim. However, she's just not a good. But she didn't start off as a good person who became corrupted. She was a bad person who just got corrupted worse.
It's just interesting to me how Penguin is like so evil, but he's just not crazy.
Yeah,
clinically.
Oh, clinically, yeah. No,
right.
Dude's got issues, but he's not clinically crazy. Yeah, he's not the Riddler.
Yeah, or the Joker.
Right. Again, the Joker may not be crazy. That the whole thing may just be an act that allows him to get away with what he does. But so we don't know which one he is yet.
But yeah, I think I don't know, Jason, what do you think? We've been gone for a little over an hour. Do you think?
Yeah, I think we're good on this. So yeah, go again. If you hear, you probably watch the show, so you know how brilliant it is. If you haven't watched the show and you're like, man, this sounds really, really good, and I've spoiled everything for you, it's okay. You can still enjoy it because there's still a lot of really good stuff in it.
Yeah, check it out and try giving the Batman another watch. Also, I don't know why. Like every time I watch it, that movie gets better and better.
It's like Dune, the first Dune for me, of the Villanueva's Dune. Don't get me wrong, I love the '80s Dune as well with Kyle MacLachlan. That's brilliant. But Villeneuve's Dune, I can't stop.
Oh, I'm still watching Dune 2. I started it. I think maybe after this I'm going to continue it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm going to watch
conversation
this Dune 2. All right. Well, we'll leave it at here, guys. Check us out. I guess this coming Monday.
Yeah, we'll be on Texas Front Porch because Tex is out in the field.
He's out literally finding Dogman right now.
Yes.
And I am very happy for Tex because he does get to meet our Lord and Savior. And many blessings will be unto him. And we shall praise his name.
We're still doing that bit, huh?
Oh, it's not going anywhere.
All right. Hey, it's the reliability.
All right, y'all. Peace out.
Bye.
Bye.